If you have carried that thick belt of belly fat around your middle since your 60s, and your fasting blood sugar keeps creeping up no matter what you cut from your plate, listen to me carefully for the next 16 minutes. The reason it will not move is not your willpower. It is not your calories. It is something inside you that quietly broke around the time you turned 60, and almost no doctor in this country will tell you about it because it does not fit inside a 15-minute appointment. I am going to show you the 5 foods the longest living women on earth eat to fix it, the one piece your body cannot make for itself anymore, and the order that matters more than the foods themselves. Do not skip ahead, sister. Number 1 is the food my own grandmother kept in a small jar on her shelf for 50 years, and it is the reason the women in my line do not carry this weight. I am Wellness Maddie. For over 40 years, I have tended my apothecary and my garden in the high desert hills of northern New Mexico. The plant wisdom I carry was given to me by my mother and her mother before her, women from the old Italian country line, and deepened by the curanderas of Taos and Santa Fe who took me in as a young woman. The old women who taught me said the same thing, every one of them. All trouble begins in the belly. Every illness, every weight that will not move, every blood sugar that will not settle. The belly is the root, and the root feeds the tree. But here is what those grandmothers knew that the laboratories are only now confirming, and this is the piece I want you to hold on to for the rest of this video. Your gut is a garden, and every garden needs 3 things to grow. It needs seeds, which are the bacteria themselves. It needs soil, which is the prebiotic fiber that feeds those bacteria. And it needs the fruit, which are the postbiotic compounds the bacteria produce after they eat. Most folks your age try to fix their gut with probiotics alone. That is throwing seeds onto dead dirt. Nothing grows. By age 60, your body has lost roughly 50% of the bacterial diversity it had at 30. And that is the deepest hidden reason that visceral fat settles in around your organs and refuses to leave. Hold that picture. Seed, soil, fruit. We will come back to it. And when we do, it will change how you understand your own body. Now let me tell you what the women of Okinawa lived with for many generations. In the old villages on that island, type 2 diabetes among the elders was nearly unheard of. The grandmothers there kept their waists slim into their 90s. Researchers from Western universities eventually came with their notebooks, and they found that the rate of metabolic disease among traditional Okinawan elders ran somewhere near 60% lower than what we see here at home. 60%. Not from a supplement, not from a prescription, from 5 quiet foods their mothers placed on the table every morning. But before I name them, hear this. One of these 5 is going to surprise you, and 9 out of 10 folks have it in the wrong form, prepared the wrong way. The order matters. Each one builds on the one before it. Stay with me because the master food, the one I have saved for last, is the single most important thing I can give you for your insulin resistance after 60. Number 5 is natto, the fermented soybean dish the Okinawan women eat in a small bowl in the morning, sometimes with a little green onion. Now, the laboratories are catching up to what those women knew. Natto contains a powerful enzyme called nattokinase, produced when the soybeans are fermented with a specific bacterium. Picture nattokinase like a small cleaning crew that moves through your blood vessels each morning, gently breaking up the sticky fibrin that builds up as we age. When the blood flows clean, your body responds to insulin the way it was meant to. After 60, fibrin levels in the blood rise by roughly 40%, which is one of the quiet reasons insulin resistance creeps in even in women who eat carefully. I had a neighbor, Dorothy, 71 years old, a retired school teacher from Bozeman, Montana, who had carried about 30 extra pounds around her middle for almost a decade. Her body was not breaking down fats well at all. We started her on a small spoonful of natto each morning. By the 8th week, she had begun to shift, and her fasting glucose had dropped almost 12%. But the last stubborn weight, that final layer that sat right above her waistband, did not move on the natto alone. We will come back to Dorothy, because what finally lifted that last layer was something she added in week 10, and I will tell you what it was when we get to it. Take 1 tablespoon of natto mixed into a small bowl of warm rice or alongside a soft-boiled egg. Pair it with a slice of fresh ginger and the effect is amplified. But the natto alone, my friend, will not do the work. It needs the next food to actually take hold. Number 4 is miso. Real, unpasteurized miso, the kind that still carries living bacteria in it, not the shelf-stable supermarket paste. Miso has been on the Okinawan table for over 4 centuries. It is rich in living lactic acid bacteria, the same family that lines the inside of a healthy gut wall. Picture your intestines like a stone wall in an old garden. Over the years, stones loosen, gaps appear. The bacteria in real miso act like the mortar that fills those gaps back in. Take 1 teaspoon of unpasteurized white or yellow miso and stir it into a cup of warm water in the late morning. Never boil the miso. Heat above 160 degrees kills the living bacteria, and then you are drinking salty water with no medicine in it. If you are on blood pressure medication, speak with your doctor before adding daily miso because the natural sodium can interact with certain prescriptions. But here is the trouble I have to tell you about, sister, because I watched my own students hit this wall for years. The miso brings the seeds. The fiber in your diet brings the soil. But after 60, your gut has lost so much of its ability to produce the postbiotic fruit, the actual healing compounds, that even the best fermented foods cannot finish the job alone. I will show you the answer to this in just a few minutes. Stay with me. Number 3 is bitter melon. The knobby green vegetable the Okinawan women call goya. They slice it thin, salt it lightly, and stir-fry it with eggs. The compounds in bitter melon, charantin, and polypeptide P work in a way that is almost identical to insulin itself. Picture your cells like houses with locked front doors, and insulin is the key that opens them so sugar can come in and be used for energy. After many years of high sugar eating, those locks get rusty. Charantin acts like a touch of oil on those rusted locks, helping the keys turn again. After 60, your cells become roughly 50% less responsive to insulin than they were at 40. That is the foundation of insulin resistance. Take a quarter of a fresh bitter melon, slice it very thin, salt it for 10 minutes to soften the bitterness, rinse it, and stir-fry it briefly with 1 egg in a little olive oil. Eat it at midday when blood sugar tends to spike from lunch. If this is helping you so far, my friend, tap the subscribe button just below this video so I can keep finding you. It takes 2 seconds. Many folks tell me they thought they were already subscribed and were not, so have a quick look. Now back to the work. Number 2 is wakame, the dark green seaweed the island women added to nearly every soup and salad. This is the one 9 out of 10 folks get wrong. They buy the dried seaweed snack from the supermarket, the kind coated in oil and salt, and they think they are doing what the grandmothers did. They are not. Real wakame is sold dried in long strips, and you soak it in water before using. That is the form that carries the medicine. Wakame contains a compound called fucoxanthin, which the laboratories have only recently begun to study seriously. Fucoxanthin appears to act directly on visceral fat, the deep fat that wraps around your organs, in a way that no surface fat burner does. Picture visceral fat like a thick layer of moss that has settled on the trunk of an old tree. Fucoxanthin is like a slow, patient gardener that gently lifts that moss away week after week. Take 1 tablespoon of dried wakame, soak it in cool water for 10 minutes until it softens and turns deep green. Then add it to a warm broth or a simple cucumber salad. Eat it with lunch 4 or 5 days a week. Now, sister, I have to stop here and tell you something I learned the hard way, because I have been watching the same wall for 40 years and I owe you the truth about it. For decades, I taught my students the 4 foods you have just heard, plus the master food I am about to share. And for decades, I watched the same thing happen. Most women got 80% of the way home. The waist would drop 2 or 3 inches. The glucose would settle. The energy would come back. But that final stubborn percentage, that last belt of belly fat right above the waistband, would not move. I tried more fermented foods. I tried more fiber. I tried longer protocols. The wall held. Then a few years ago, I sat down with a researcher who had spent his life studying the gut bacteria of women over 60, and he showed me something that changed everything I thought I knew. He said, "Maddie, by the time a woman reaches her 60s, her gut has stopped producing the postbiotic compounds in the amounts her body needs. Probiotics give her the seeds. Fiber gives her the soil. But the fruit, the actual healing molecules her bacteria are supposed to make, her gut can no longer produce on its own. That is the missing piece. And no amount of fermented food alone can replace it, because the fermentation process in a jar does not produce the specific postbiotic her aging gut needs." So I went looking. I tested almost every probiotic on the shelf. Most of them were just seeds in dead soil. Then I found one that was different, and after I had used it with my own students for 2 years and watched what happened to that final stubborn percentage, I started recommending it. It is called BoochBod. What I appreciate about it is that it is not a pill. It is a kombucha gummy, which matters because most folks my age do not want to swallow another capsule. And it carries all 3 pieces in one small daily dose. The prebiotic fiber, which is the soil. The probiotic strains, including lactospore, which has been studied specifically for older guts, which are the seeds, and the postbiotic, called Postbiotics LM1004, which is the fruit your gut can no longer produce on its own. It also carries the slippery elm and dandelion root my grandmother used to grow in her kitchen garden. Over 30,000 folks are using it now. They offer a 60-day guarantee. So if your body does not respond, you send the empty jar back and they refund you. The link sits in the description below if you want to take a look. As always, please speak to your doctor before starting any supplement. Now back to Dorothy, the school teacher from Montana. The natto had given her almost 12% off her glucose, but that final belt above her waistband would not budge. In week 10, we added BoochBod. By week 16, her waist was down a full 2 inches further, and her glucose dropped another 10%. She told me, "Maddie, I can tie my shoes again without holding my breath, and that is no small thing." Eleanor, 68, a retired florist from Santa Fe, came to me last spring with a soft, round belly she had carried since menopause. The wakame began to lift the visceral fat from around her liver, but the last stubborn layer held. We added BoochBod in week 8. By the 12th week, her waist had reduced by 3 inches and her fasting glucose had dropped 17%. She wrote to me, "Maddie, I bent down to weed my own garden last week and I did not need to push myself up with my hands. Now we arrive at the master food. Number 1 is fermented black soybeans, which the Okinawans call kuromame. This is what my own grandmother kept in a small jar on the shelf above her stove. 5 generations of women in my family have eaten them every morning, and I have not seen a single one of us carry the belly weight or the blood sugar trouble that I see in so many women now. Fermented black soybeans carry 3 things at once: the highest concentration of anthocyanins of any soybean, which are the deep purple-black pigments that protect the cells from oxidative damage; isoflavones, which gently support hormone balance after menopause; and a fermentation compound that researchers from a university in Kyoto have studied for over a decade, which improves insulin sensitivity in older adults. Picture the inside of your cells after many years of high blood sugar. The mitochondria, the small power plants inside each cell, become sluggish and tired. They cannot burn the sugar that comes in. The anthocyanins act like a slow, careful tune-up on those power plants. After 60, mitochondrial function drops by roughly 50%, which is at the root of why the same food you ate at 40 now sits on your hips at 70. Frances, 74, a retired nurse from Burlington, Vermont, had been on the edge of a diabetes diagnosis for 3 years. Her cells had become so resistant to insulin that no diet alone was going to turn it. We started her on the fermented black soybeans alongside the natto and miso. The glucose began to drop. But it was not until we added BoochBod in week 8 that her cells truly began to respond. By week 16, her fasting glucose had dropped 29% and her doctor took her off the watch list. She told me, Maddie, I sit on the porch in the morning now with my coffee and I feel like myself again. Take 2 tablespoons of fermented black soybeans, the kind sold in small jars at the Asian market or online, with breakfast and a cup of warm green tea. Every morning. Consistency is everything. The grandmothers did not eat them twice a week. They ate them every day for 50 years. 3 things most folks do not know. First, eat your bitter melon and your wakame in the same meal at midday because the fucoxanthin in the wakame is fat-soluble and absorbs roughly 30% better when paired with a small amount of oil from a stir-fried bitter melon dish. Second, never boil your miso or your natto. Third, the order of eating in a single meal matters. Eat the fermented foods first, the bitter melon second, and the rice or grain last. What you are doing here, my friend, is not about a number on a scale. It is about the mornings ahead of you, where you can stand in your own garden and bend down to pull a weed without that ache behind your ribs. It is about lifting a grandchild onto your hip without your knees giving out. It is never too late, sister. The body wants to heal. It is waiting for the right things to come into the kitchen. If you take one thing from me today, take this. The 5 foods are the foundation. They will get you most of the way home. But the missing piece your body cannot make for itself anymore is the postbiotic. And that is what BoochBod was built for. The link is in the description. 60-day guarantee, so the risk is on them, not on you. Go have a look while it is fresh in your mind. Take good care of yourself, my friend. The garden is waiting.